Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang. Welcome to the final recap of the regular season. The playoffs are coming up next week. We will have our LGDS, the Lollygaggers Divisional Series. It's really more of a wild card with those two leaders there, but hey, we'll call it the DS for now. But before we do have to recap Week 21. A bit of a late season malaise. The real players are in the dog days of summer, and we are. That's sort of the end of our season, but of course, we are where we are. So this will be a little bit of an interesting recap. Gonna maybe move through just a bit quicker on things because I do have some pretty fun stuff for the preview of the playoff matchup. So we will get started off with the Sault Ste. Marie Locks versus the Fenton Melonheads. Tough day to start for Sault Ste. Marie. Mason Barnett with minus 14 and Carmen Mladzinski with minus 5 kept their score at just 12 as Fenton took the lead. Fenton would extend it on Tuesday, getting 26 from Robbie Ray, although minus 13 from Michael Peterson did dip their score a bit on top of bench blunder number 1 for the week, which was Zebby Matthews with 21 points. Not number 1 on the total points scored there, but rather number 1 for the Melonheads. Their second bench blunder would come on Wednesday. Matthew Libertor in the form of 23 points left on the bench. It was a strong day otherwise, though, for Fenton, who had 10 points from Brandon Lau, 11 from Carson Bench and 21 from Michael King, while 35 from Aaron Nola got Sault Ste. Marie just a little bit closer. A huge pitching day on Thursday, 30 from Grant Holmes and 34 from Grayson Rodriguez, all en route to 114 points, would actually give Sault Ste. Marie the lead on Thursday, but Fenton would retake it on Friday, scoring 57 points on top of, on the back of Hayden Wesneski's 24 and Jordan Alvarez's 11. Just 6 from Connor Prelip on the Lock side did keep their score just a little bit lower on that day. Both teams had a 24-point bench blunder on Saturday. It was Blake Tidwell for the Locks. It was David Peterson for the Melonheads. Brooks Lee had 10 points. J.J. Blade had 23 as he hit for the cycle for the Sault Ste. Marie Locks, while Mike Soroka's at minus 8 did keep their score just a little bit lower on Saturday. Melonheads would have a bit of a tough pitching day of their own. Only 5 points from Christian Scott, who's been so consistent, and a minus 4 from Quinn Matthews, but 13 from Kyle Schwarber and 14 from Carson Benj would help them hold that lead that they had taken the day before, and they would close things out despite just a 4-point day from Jose Soriano. They did get 67 on the day, 12 from Isaac Paredes to close out the win in the final week of the season for them. They did win 392 to 341, 51 points separating the two teams, with Sault Ste. Marie as the lowest scorer of the week. It was a little bit of just kind of a slow week all around for both of these teams. Again, you're going to hear that a lot this week, just kind of for most teams outside of a few. Teams are just kind of in that tough offseason malaise. A little bit of a tough week on the pitching side for Fenton. 41 earned runs allowed, 74 hits, 30 walks. The pitching staff really struggled to get efficient outs. But they were quality on the innings pitched with 69.1 there. They did well on the hitting side, though. 105 total bases and 23 extra base hits. That really propelled them forward, along with 9 home runs. Moving on to our next matchup, we had the Valley Giflords versus the Arctic Real Survivors. Arctic took the lead on Monday, scoring 62 points, 29 of them coming from Blake Snell. But the Valley Giflords would come back to tie it exactly on Tuesday. The two teams tied. The Valley got their points on 15 from Mason Wynn, 27 from Kyle Harrison. The only reason they didn't end up taking the lead was a minus 8 from Merrill Kelly, while Trent Grisham's 11 on the other side contributed to 71 total for the Real Survivors. The Valley Giflord took the lead on Wednesday after tying them the day before, despite 13 from Mookie Betts and 15 from Vinny Pasquantino over on the other side. The Real Survivors would pull ahead again on Thursday, however, scoring 75 points, 12 from Spencer Jones, 31 from Garrett Cole, and a slow 29-point day for the Giflords. On Friday, the Real Survivors scored 103, extending their lead. So it was a big pitching day on the positive and the negative side. Positive, Mackenzie Gore with 31. Negative, Logan Webb with minus 11. The batters really picked up the Survivors, though, 12 from Vinny Pasquantino and 17 from Alex Bregman, while former Real Survivor Bubba Chandler put in a less than stellar performance, only 6 points over on the other side for the Giflords. On Saturday, a big pitching day of their own would give the Valley the lead. 26 points from Tanner Bybee, 36 from Andrew Painter, while a minus 4 from Casey Mize, along with a pair of bench blunders, 31 in Jacob Lopez and 12 in Hector Rodriguez, would cause the Real Survivors to surrender that lead. However, a big final day from Blake Snell with 31 points, along with 11 from Jose Altuve and 10 from Trent Grisham, paired with the fact that the Giflords did not get any pitching points on Sunday, would allow the Real Survivors to pull out a win in their final game of the season, 482 to 415, 67 points separating those two teams. The Real Survivors had a strong week on the hitting side. They led in every hitting category, every relevant hitting category, I should say, except for caught stealings and triples. So they really dominated on the hitting side. You saw that in the best batters list, where they had Vinny Pasquantino, who's number 5 on that list with 49. They also did pretty well on the pitching side, although not so much in the volume. 69.1 innings pitched to 75 over on the other side. They did not allow too many runs, only 30 allowed, and only 66 hits allowed across the entire week. They also had the number 1 potent pitcher on the week, Blake Snell, who ended his season strong with 60 points. I should say, in this matchup, the Giflords did officially punch their ticket to the playoffs by winning this one. Of course, they, just needed, they were a win and in. They did end up getting some other things going for them that secured that entry into the playoffs. But little claps, congrats to Al Martinet making the playoffs for the first time. Congrats. And of course, I should have shouted out Fenton, they were obviously secured in the playoffs, but will be moving on. Our third matchup was the Portland Pioneers taking on the Joinville-friendly Capybaras. Portland on an 11-game winning streak, looking to close things out strong, while Joinville looked to end the season on a happy note, being eliminated from contention and locked into their draft position. It was a strong start to the week for Joinville, who scored 32 points, 24 of them coming from Bobby Witt and 11 from Ivan Herrera. And if you're saying to yourself, that adds up to more than 32, well, minus 6 from Ed Luz Diaz did keep their score a little bit lower than it should have been. 66 points on Tuesday would not be quite enough for Portland to take that lead away. They got 19 from Tyler Malley, while 17 came from Joe Adele on the Capybaras side. Portland had a bit of a rough day on Wednesday. Only 9 points from Drew Rasmussen and only 10 from Sandy Alcantara. But the sum of the parts in their pitching staff, despite disappointing performances all around, would be enough to give them the lead on Wednesday as they scored 64 points. However, it would be snatched right away from them again on Thursday as 68 points from the Capybaras, 15 from Bobby Witt and 17 from Garrett Mitchell did give them that lead back. It was a rough showing on Portland's side. Trade deadline acquisition Robert Gasser put in yet another disappointing performance. Only 2 points for him there, while Brock Burke sank the ship with minus 7 in a blown save. 10 points from William Abreu on Friday was the best experience the Portland Pioneers ever had, as they scored 68, closing that gap just a little bit, but 52 from the Capybaras would be enough to hold the lead. 26 coming from Reed Detmers and a Jordan Lawler 13-point bench blunder, just keeping that score a bit closer. The big day finally came for Joinville on Saturday, however, as they had a strong sum-of-the-parts pitching day. Dean Kramer and Patrick Sandoval each had 16, while former Portland Pioneer Cade Anderson put up 13 points. Not a outstanding performance, but a strong enough one to land him on this list. They got performances from their batters as well, did the Capybaras. 11 points from Jackson Maryland, 12 from Joe Adell, while Dylan Cease's 33 points were really the only standout for the Pioneers on Saturday. Tyler Alexander and Kodai Senga each putting in a -5 on Sunday made things a little bit interesting, but it would not be enough for the Portland Pioneers to pull closer, as they would end up losing by just 10 points to the Capybaras, 386 to 376, snapping their 11-game win streak and sending them into the playoffs with a loss. This was our narrowest win of the week. Like I said, just 10 points, and Joinville did have the fewest points in a win, but you know what we always say, they don't ask how, they ask how many, and in this case, Joinville did take away that win, ending their season on a high note. Strong ending to the season as well from their star shortstop Bobby Witt, who is number 4 on the best batters list with 51. Joinville dominated in both categories, if we're being honest here. They led in a bunch of key hitting categories like home runs, 8-3, RBIs, 35-18, and total bases, 94-72. They led in some key pitching categories too. Strikeouts 63-59, earned runs, walks 28-31, and they did not allow a blown save, while the Pioneers did allow 3. Slow week in Pioneers land out in Portland here. Obviously, this team is quite hurt. Only 8 starts in Portland this week, as a couple players are just on the IL, looking to hopefully get back in about a week once Portland plays another meaningful game. Congratulations, of course, to the Capybaras. It is in a disappointing season. I'm obviously saying this from experience last year. It is nice to, end things on a bit of a high note. And for Hideki's sake, obviously, I am glad it did not affect your draft position. Matchup number 4 is the Arizona Asphalt facing off against the Washington State Winners. Of course, as you'll remember, this was Arizona's last chance to make it into the playoffs, of course, in the last week. For them to make it in, they would have both needed to beat the Washington State Winners, to beat them by 131 points, and to have the Giflords lose. Unfortunately, none of those 3 things did happen. Washington State had a dominant week. It was not a shabby one from Arizona either, as you will see. The Winners started out doing their winning thing. 133 points on Monday, 23 from Pete Crow Armstrong, and 24 from Christopher Sanchez. It was a big day in Arizona as well, though. Freddie Freeman had 10, Andy Pajes had 11, and Max Muncy closed out the Dodger trio with 14. Foster Griffin had 27 for the Asphalt on Tuesday, as they would score 45 points. The 37 from Washington State would be enough to hold onto that lead, though. 38 from George Klassen, and a couple of disappointing reliever performances dragging that down. Sal Stewart had 12 points for Washington on Wednesday, as they scored 75. And on Thursday, Washington State would have their biggest day. Gavin Williams with 25 and Jacob DeGrom with 39, all tallying up to 104. Not their biggest day, pardon me, but another 100-plus point day to hold that lead. Arizona would come back on Friday with a 100-plus point day. 24 from Eduardo Rodriguez, 26 from Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and 12 from Miguel Vargas. I just wrote Yamamoto, and for some reason, my 1045 brain almost said Jordan Yamamoto. Do y'all remember Jordan Yamamoto? He was the Marlin. He came over in the Christian Yelich deal. I remember he allowed it was 15 runs in a game or something. He was in this massive blowout, I think, against the Braves. And I think it raised his career ERA by a point and a half. It was at 4.0, and it ended at 5.5 or something. It was crazy. Long tangent. This isn't Jordan Yamamoto. This is Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and he had 26. Another 100-plus point day on Saturday for Arizona. 119 points for them. 33 from Michael Wacha, 15 from Ellie De La Cruz, and 11 from Luis Garcia. Those big days, however, would not be enough to take the lead away from the Washington State Winners, who would close things out with a 73-point Sunday. Despite that minus 19 from Riley O'Brien, PCA did have 14, and Ian Happ closed out the season for the Asphalt with a strong 18-point day. Ultimately, the Washington State Winners would end up taking the matchup 541 to 501, 40 points separating those two teams. In a little bit of dramatic irony, of course, knowing Arizona needed to score a lot of points this week to have a chance at playoffs, they actually did, and they had the most points in a loss, 501, of course, there. I'm just quickly double-checking something. They were one of only 3 teams this week to score at least 500 points. Of course, it did end up coming up against the reigning league champion, the Washington State Winners. Arizona had a couple of superlatives on this list. Number 3, potent pitcher, and number 5, potent pitcher, Foster Griffin and Michael Wacha. Only separated by decimals. They had 43 points on the week each. While PCA had 58 points and was the number 2 best batter for the Washington State Winners. Matchup number 5 is the Bronx Bandoleros versus the St. Petersburg Tropopologists. The Bronx got an early lead on Monday, scoring 49 to 42 points. Christian Encarnacion Strand had 12 points, while Jordan Walker had 10. From then on, it would be mostly Tropopologists, though. They would score 87 on Tuesday, 35 from Braxton Ashcraft, who has been fantastic for St. Petersburg this year. On Wednesday, they would get only 9 from Paul Skeens, but 38 from Cade Cavalli. Zach Neto scored 25 points on Thursday to extend that Tropopologist lead, while Jordan Walker did get 13, totaling out more than half of their 21 total on the day. 77 on Friday for the Tropopologists, 24 from Trevor Rogers, minus 12 from Nick Lodolo, while Cam Schlittler had 24 points of his own for the Bandoleros, and Jordan Walker another 12. Yuri Perez ended his season in the Bronx strong, scoring 20 points for the Bandoleros on Saturday, while the Tropopologists had a day that ended exactly at that century mark. 13 from Zach Neto, 26 from Logan Henderson, and 34 in a welcome start from Tarek Skubal. The Tropopologists, although they were outscored on Sunday, would end up closing out the win, 462 to 364, 98 points separating those 2 teams. Obviously, look, not the season either one of these teams wanted. Both playoffs teams last year, unfortunately, did not make it this year. Things did seem to sort of tick up for St. Petersburg in the end, I have to say. They, ended the season at 10 and 11, so, in the end, not the worst record they could have had. And the Bronx Bandoleros end up with a, in my opinion, very valuable draft pick. And I think it'll be really exciting to see how JMC utilizes that. St. Petersburg did have the number 3 best batter this week, Zach Neto, with 56 points. Matchup number 6 is the Cuyahoga Black Panthers versus the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes. Bit of a tough start to the week for both teams pitching-wise. Mitch Bratt had a -3 for Cuyahoga in their 22-point day. Luis Castillo recorded only 3 for the Rabid Coyotes, and Shane McClanahan only 6 in their 44-point day. Southwest Kansas would hold their lead on a strong batting day on Tuesday, as Michael Bush had 10 points and Gabriel Moreno had 13. An interesting mixed bag day for Cuyahoga Black Panthers. 17 from Tatis, which was fantastic. 21 from Andrew Abbott, very solid. 0 from Bryce Miller, who did come over as that young starter. And unfortunately, this was the first of multiple 20-plus run games that he started this week. Taj Bradley did pick things up a bit for the Panthers on Wednesday, scoring 21 points. Parker Messick, 29, but it would not be quite enough to take over that lead from the Rabid Coyotes. Another tough pitching day for Cuyahoga on Thursday. Tatsuya Imai with only 7, but at least he was in the positives because they got -5 from Gage Jump, -9 from George Kirby. Strong batting day on Friday for the Black Panthers, though 13 from Pete Alonso and 13 from Travis Bazana, a young key to their team moving forward. It was a strong day as well for the Rabid Coyotes, who had a pair of inverted score lines, 12 from O'Neal Cruz and 21 from Noah Cameron, en route to an 86-point day as they held the lead they had established. Same would be true on Saturday. Despite being outscored, they got 21 from Shane McClanahan this time, but another poor Castillo start, -7 this time around. Big day for the Black Panthers batting-wise. 86 points, 11 from Luke Keyshaw, 18 from Luis Robert Jr., and 20 from Randy Arozarena. Sunday would see Fernando Tatis's biggest start of the day, biggest day of the week, 22 points for the Padres right fielder, who really seems to have found his form, something I'm sure Serial Chiller hopes he will continue into next season. That was the main positive for Cuyahoga on that day. However, Bryce Miller, -2, as I mentioned, another poor start, and Pedro Ramirez had 18 points left on the bench, while Jake Bennett's 26 and Jazz Chisholm's 11 would contribute to a 101-point day, closing out the win for the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes. Although they did go wire to wire, it was still relatively close, 457 to 407, 50 points separating those two teams. Cuyahoga, strong week batting-wise, and of course you saw that in their number one best batter, Fernando Tatis Jr., was an interesting mix. Strong lead in total bases, 121. They led in extra base hits as well, 24 to 21. They led in home runs, 16 to 6, and RBIs, 37 to 28. They did strike out quite a bit and didn't walk a lot. I think it'll be really interesting to see what this Cuyahoga offense looks like next year. It is, I think, a really strong contending core of offensive pieces. Jeremy Pena, Rafael Devers, Randy Rosarena, Luis Robert, Cam Smith, Luke Keishall, Travis Bazana, Francisco Alvarez. Their pitching staff, however, I think does have a lot to be desired. And I'm fascinated personally to see how Serial Chiller handles this offseason. Is it a big sell-off, go for a rebuild? Is it maybe sell a couple pieces, try and retool on the fly? That, of course, does make it hard to make that all-in push, but they're also in a position with this offense where I think they potentially could contend with the right moves. It should be an interesting offseason in Cuyahoga. Same should be true for Southwest Kansas, who did drop a little bit in the standings, but still have a solid pick going into next season. They have a pretty strong offense of their own. Gunnar Henderson and Jazz Chisholm are in there. Michael Bush, who has been so great. Gabriel Moreno has finally broken out this year, along with, of course, Dylan Cruz, looking to kind of finally get that breakout, and O'Neal Cruz of his own, who so up and down there, but boy, when he clicks in, it is just spectacular to watch. Noah Cameron, that is a name I am pegging right now. Keep an eye on him. He was fantastic in Kansas City this year, and I'm expecting some pretty special things out of him next year as well. Our final matchup of the day was the North Pole Natty Bohs, who faced off against the Seoul Sovereigns. This, of course, a little bit of a potential preview, depending on how things went. North Pole and Seoul could end up facing off against one another. The North Pole Natty Bohs entered the week in, fifth place. I believe the Seoul Sovereigns entering the week in third place. And as I said, they squared off against one another. North Pole took the lead on Monday, scoring 96 points, 10 from Kevin McGonigal, 13 from Wilson Contreras, and 22 from Shohei Ohtani. Boy, there are a lot of names to read out on this Seoul Sovereigns Day. Let me start by saying it was 64 points, 11 from Yandy Diaz, 12 from Cedon Rafaela, 21 from Nolan McLean, and 25 from Shota Imanaga. All those positive points, but only 64. -4 from Ryan Zephyr-John, -6 from Tyler Wells, and -13 from Yanier Cano in a tough bullpen day from the Sovereigns. Tuesday saw the North Pole Natty Bohs put up their first 100-plus point day of the week, 128 points on 13 from Adley Rushman and 16 from Willie Castro, while Luis Lara and Alejandro Kirk each put up 16 points for the Sovereigns. North Pole held their lead through Wednesday as well, Luis Arias scoring 12 points for them, and through Thursday, despite only 7 from Kyle Bradish. Corey Seager got 11 points for the Bohs, while Peter Lambert had a tough -13-point day for the Sovereigns. Tough pitching performances continued on Friday as Troy Melton had his first bad start in a while, recording only 8 points, while Wilson Contreras put up another 13 points for the Natty Bohs. It could have been 26 in total on the batting side, but Alec Bohm was a bench blunder with 13 points on that day. quiet Saturday for both teams as North Pole held their lead despite being outscored, but they would close things out emphatically on Sunday, scoring 124 points to close out the wire-to-wire win. 14 points from Kevin McGonigal, 16 from Chase DeLauder, and 31 from Cal Quantrill. It was a strong day in Seoul as well. They scored 89 points. Nolan McLean had 28. Nick Martinez had 34. It would not be enough, however, as the North Pole Natty Bohs would put they would stamp their claim a little bit to this matchup, outscoring the Seoul Sovereigns 583 to 399. 184 points separating the two teams. That was the biggest blowout of the week, and North Pole was the highest scorer with 583. Of course, this matchup result does mean that the two teams will be facing off against each other again next week. So this certainly should be exciting to take a look at then. Let's see, what was I going to say? Thank you. Congratulations to both of those teams for advancing on into the playoffs. Just a quick shout out for everyone. Thank you for an amazing regular season. It's been so fun to recap these 21 weeks. For those of you who obviously aren't in the playoffs, I hope that if you want, I suppose you don't need to, you continue to listen the next couple of weeks. It is fun getting into those playoff matchups, and with just 2 matchups a week, one of course that final week, we do really get to dive into things a little bit closer and look at some more stats. So I find that to be quite a bit of fun. I hope you all do too. Let's take a look at our final standing segment. How did things end out on the year with the best record in the league, ending in first place at 16-5 was the Portland Pioneers. Close behind them in second place was the Washington State Winners with a 15-6 record. In third place, the Fenton Melonheads, 14-7. North Pole Natty Bohs and Seoul Sovereigns tied in record at 13-8 in fourth place and fifth place. North Pole taking that fourth place by total points scored. And our final playoff team, the Valley Giflords, at 12-9. We did, of course, talk a little bit before the season what was going to get you into the playoffs. Turned out the win total was 12. Brutally missing out on the playoffs by 1 spot for the second year in a row. The Arizona Asphalt pour one out for my intrepid co-host Ace at 11-10. A winning record just did not quite get them in there at 7th place. The Arctic Real Survivors, an expansion team, finished in 8th place. Congrats to them with a 10-11 record. Same record for the St. Petersburg Tropopologists, who, although things did not start well, I said they did tick up a little bit near the end, and finishing, considering how things started for St. Pete, finishing just a game below 500, I actually think is quite a strong finish and a good indication that they should be back next year. Southwest Kansas finished the year in 10th place with a 9-12 record. The Bandoleros finished the year in 11th place at 8-13. Cuyahoga in 12th place at 7-14. Joinville Friendly Capybaras with 6-15 in 13th place, and the Sault Ste. Marie Locks did finish at the bottom of the league at 3-18. Let's quickly read off a few things that we know. We do know a few draft picks. With the worst record in the league, the Sault Ste. Marie Locks secured the first pick in the upcoming first-year player draft. However, that pick is owned by Fenton, so the Melonheads will be drafting first overall. Joinville owns their own first-round pick and will be drafting second. Sault Ste. Marie does own a first-round pick. However, it's Cuyahoga's, so Sault Ste. Marie will be drafting third. Bronx Bandoleros secured the 4th pick. Southwest Kansas, the 5th. St. Petersburg Tropopologists will be drafting 6th. The Arctic Real Survivors do not own their own first-round pick. That one is owned by the Joinville Friendly Capybaras, who will be drafting 7th. So 2 top 7 picks for Joinville at 2 and 7. That'll be interesting. The Real Survivors do own a first-round pick. However, it is the Arizona Asphalt who are drafting 8th. And so Real Survivors moved down just 1 spot there. Obviously, a little bit of info on draft. That will all come up later, but now that those spots are locked in, I thought I would go over it. Let's quickly talk over the claims corner. I'm going to do 3 periods. So Monday to start the week, Thursday the midweek, and then I also do want to just shout out this last one is there are a few teams that for the non-playoff teams, I just want to shout out their stuff now. So for Monday, Jansen Junk went for $15 to the Valley Giflords. Jacob Lopez went for $50 to the Arctic Real Survivors. That was $15 for the Giflords, pardon me. And Jeff McNeil went for $9 to the Natty Bohs. On Thursday, Yuki Matsui went for $11 to the Seoul Sovereigns, Brett Callahan for $17 to the Sovereigns, and Almibek Ortiz for $11 also to the Seoul Sovereigns. Augustine Ramir has returned to a roster on a $50 bid by the Arctic Real Survivors, while Tim Tawa joined Fenton's outfield group on a $17 bid. Daniel Duarte on a $70 bid joined the St. Petersburg Tropopologists, and Cal Quantrill went for $10 to North Pole. Finally, let's talk over this last window. Of course, for eliminated teams, this was their last chance to make claims. Let's quickly talk over those first. Franklin Primera and Chase Harlan, a pair of prospects. Franklin Primera, a catcher for the Red Sox. Chase Harlan, a third baseman for the Dodgers, went on a pair of matching $44 bids to the Bronx Bandoleros. Colt Keith, you know how our good friend Peach loves to say it. He went for $26 to the Jordanville Friendly Capybaras. The Arctic Real Survivors had a pair of bids, $24 and $25 to grab Gavin Stone and Jacob Marcy. And Drew Summers went for $20 to the Sault Ste. Marie Locks. On to teams that will be continuing on to the playoffs. Seoul Sovereign did put in another $15 bid, this one for Randy Vasquez. They also grabbed Walker Buehler for $4, while the Valley Giflords picked up Jeffrey Springs and Nolan Arenado on a pair of $1 bids. Washington State did also bid on Nolan Arenado, but he ended up going to the Giflords due to the fact that they were lower in the standings. Finally, let's move on to next week's notes. The LGDS is upon us, and the first matchup I would like to preview is the Fenton Melonheads with the 3 seed taking on the 6-seeded Valley Giflords. I will start off by talking about these teams' last encounters with one another. Fenton and the Valley first met in week 1 when Fenton blew out the Valley in that shortened week. The final score of that one was 315 to 184. However, the Valley punched back in week 14, winning that matchup by just 10 points over the Melonheads. So, closely contested in their last meeting, bit of a blowout in the first win, but the teams are 1-1 against each other this season. Let's talk about them a little bit. Fenton finished the season in 3rd place with a 14-7 record. Coming into the season for our preseason rankings, of course, aggregated from the group, Fenton were ranked as the number 8 team. During my PSP, my preseason projection, I predicted a 13-8 record, so only one win off there. Pretty proud of that one. For the Melonheads, they ended the year in 5th place for hitting and in 8th place for pitching. So a strong showing on both sides. That hitting core for Fenton is so strong. We've obviously talked quite a bit about the effect that the Braves having good weeks can have for them. Now, of course, with Olsen, Baldwin, and Austin Riley, but they have such a strong offense. Kyle Schwarber's in there, Yordan Alvarez, great years from guys like Carson Benj and JJ Weatherholt and a couple of rookies. And the pitching staff is not too shabby either. Shane Drowan, who of course I've talked how much about, I love him. Jose Soriano has continued his breakout season. Robbie Ray has been so great, and so has Zebby Matthews since he came back up. The Valley Giflords had an interesting season of their own, finishing in 6th place with a 12-9 record. They completely blew out everyone's expectations. They were ranked 13 in the preseason projections. People were not a fan of them, I think largely because of that pitching staff, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Hand up, my preseason prediction was for a 6-15 record. That was clearly wrong. They beat out my prediction by 6 wins. When you think of the Valley Giflords, you think of that incredible offense. Here's what I was shocked to find out. They ranked 13th place in hitting, only ahead of the last place Sault Ste. Marie Locks. They ranked 2nd place in pitching. Al Martinet did an impressive job stringing together different starters, finding guys on the waiver wire, finding maybe undervalued guys, or putting together starts from players that maybe weren't wanted elsewhere, as well as, of course, that incredibly dominant bullpen, which certainly contributed to a lot of those points. This should be a fascinating matchup between these two teams. The Valley hurting quite a bit from injuries to Nick Kurtz and James Wood. The Melonheads hurting from some unfortunate pitching performances this past week, and certainly hoping for and dreaming on better ones next week. My prediction is going with the chalk. I do think that the Melonheads will be taking this matchup. A couple weeks ago, I honestly would have picked the Giflords. I was terrified of running into this team, so much so I was actually not hating the idea of ending up in second place, so I could avoid them potentially in the playoffs. James Wood and Nick Kurtz going down are huge effects. Those are guys that can easily have 40, 50-point weeks apiece. I could be up to 100 points taken off of your score. And I think that that'll just be enough to keep the Valley out of advancing on to the championship series. I do predict that the Fenton Melonheads will move forward. Our second matchup of the week is the North Pole Natty Bohs versus the Seoul Sovereigns. This is the 4-5 matchup. North Pole, of course, jumping them with their win over the Sovereigns last week. Of course, we just talked about it. They blew out the Sovereigns in week 21, but Seoul had the last laugh over North Pole, or I should say the first laugh, in week 10, in week 8, as they outscored the North Pole Natty Bohs by just 10 points, squeaking out a win there. So another one that is 1-1 going into this final week. Let's start by talking about the Natty Bohs. 13-8 got them 4th place. They were ranked number 5 preseason, so they outperformed that group prediction by a little bit. However, they underperformed my record prediction by a little bit. I had an aggressive 15-6 prediction for their record in the PSP. That would have had them in second place. They were just a little bit lower there. I'll tell you one number we all could have told you from the start, though. First place in hitting. Their hitting core is absolutely dominant. Is it buoyed a little bit by the fact they get an extra hitter every single day with Shohei? It is. We can all admit that. That doesn't take away from the fact that it is absolutely sensational. 3 guys over 500 points. Luis Arias, Wilson Contreras, and rookie Kevin McGonigal. A smattering of 400-point guys in Christian Walker, Alec Bohm, and where was my last one? I just had it, Josh Naylor. And almost the entire rest of the lineup is in the 300s. It is a dominant lineup that can carry them to a win in any week. The pitching staff is strong as well. Kevin Gausman has come over at the deadline. Kyle Leahy has been fantastic this year. Shane Bohs really showed out in his first year in Baltimore. Kyle Bradish was fantastic, along with Michael McGreevy, and Chris Sale was the standout with a 567-point season. They looked incredible. I don't know Joe Ryan's return. It looks like he pitched a 35-pitch bullpen recently, so he could be back before too long. Certainly, if they are able to make it out of this week, I think we could see him back. And the North Pole look like a dangerous team moving into the playoffs. Let's talk about the Sovereigns next, who also finished at 13-8. They were ranked number 7 in preseason, so similarly to their opponent, overperformed, in this case by 2 spots, and grossly outperformed my record prediction for them. They did finish 13-8. I predicted them at 9-12. I didn't totally believe, and I should have, because Intent did an incredible job this season, of course, finishing with that 5th place record. They were 11th place in hitting. That is definitely the weakness on their team, but on the pitching side, they were dominant 6th place, which was very, very good for the Sovereigns. Let's talk about their hitters a little bit. They do have some young guys, Angel Hano, Almebek Ortiz, and Cole Carrig, all rookies who have been strong performers for them this year. Cedon Rafaela's explosion has certainly been helpful, that 429 points from him. Nico Horner putting up over 500, and Geraldo Perdomo, who we didn't talk about in the same way we did last year, but still 485 in the regular season for him, very strong, along with Xavier Edwards and Yandy Diaz also in the 400s. The pitching staff, as I said, is really where this team shone, though. 500 from a guy like Nolan McLean, and then a smattering of 4s as well from Nick Martinez, who, of course, was taken in that roster expansion draft that we did mid-season. Great grab there. Shota Imanaga as well, despite his poor start to end the week. Still 465 on the regular season for him. Pretty quality bullpen as well. Again, despite poor showing this past week, but Trevor McGill, Andres Munoz, Steven Okert, and Ryan Zefferjan, all really strong guys. Peter Lambert is another name to keep an eye out on there. 391. Torrey Melton is the last name I want to shout out. He is looking like a true ace out in Detroit, especially with the spot sort of voided by Tarek Skubal. From August 9th through, or let's say June 25th through August 9th, 26, 33, 29, 23, 12, 35, 34, 28. So incredible. He has slowed down a little bit the past 2 starts, but he has been so good and should be an ace in the hole there. Don't count out AJ Smith-Shawver either, who looks like he is back. I hate to do it again, but I'm going to go with the chalk pick. North Pole is just too strong a team, too strong an offense to not pick them for this upcoming series. I do have to predict them as the winner. I shouldn't say have to, obviously. Would love to see Bohs advance. I just mean have to, and it's kind of boring to pick the 2 favorites. But look, they're favorites for a reason. It's because they are strong. So I do have the Fenton Melonheads and the North Pole Natty Bohs moving on. That would mean Fenton would take on the Washington State winners next week, and North Pole would square off with the Portland Pioneers. It's about all I've got for you this week for North Pole, Seoul, Fenton, and the Valley. Good luck in the coming week. We're now down to elimination time, folks. Playoffs are upon us. Thank you all again, of course, for an incredible regular season. I hope the playoffs treat all of us that are in there well, and it should be an exciting watch. Have a good one.
Do you know what that makes you, Larry?
Lollygaggers.
Lolly.